All right, I have 7 o'clock. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Dreer,
Present.
Counselor Irvin,
Present.
Youth Representative, Counselor Fleck,
Here.
Counselor Meriday,
Here.
Counselor Savage,
Here.
Counselor Sennett,
Here.
Mayor Solsby.
Here. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight we have a special presentation, the swearing in of a police officer and a captain. Chief Grove.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's great to have this opportunity, even though the last time I think I was home sick and I got to watch Mr. Myers do it on video. But we have a new officer. We're going to start with Agnes Lane. So, Officer Lane, if you want to come forward. Okay. Agnes does have some family members here in the back, and so we thank them for being here. Actually, you know what? We're going to do the ethics together. So, Captain Marsh, why don't you come up here as well? And if you both raise your right hand and repeat after me, I'll go slow because it's quite a bit there. As a criminal justice officer, my fundamental duty is to serve humankind, to safeguard lives and property, to protect all persons against deception, the weak against oppression or intimidation, and the peaceful against violence or disorder, and to respect the constitutional rights of all people, for liberty, equality, and justice. I will keep my private life unsullied as an example to all, maintain courageous calm in the face of danger, scorn or ridicule, develop self-restraint, and be constantly mindful of the welfare of others. Honest in thought and deed, in both my personal and official life, I will be exemplary in obeying the laws of the land and the regulations of my department. Whatever I see or hear of a confidential nature, or that is confided to me in my official capacity, will be kept ever secret unless revelation is necessary in the performance of my duty. I will never act officiously or permit personal feelings, prejudices, animosities, or friendships to influence my decisions. Without compromise and with relentlessness, I will uphold the laws affecting the duties of my profession, courteously and appropriately, without fear or favor, malice or ill will, never employing unnecessary force or violence, and never accepting gratuities. We're almost done. I recognize my position as a symbol of public faith. As a symbol of public faith, and I accept it as a public trust to be held so long as I am true to the ethics of the criminal justice system. I will constantly strive to achieve these objectives and ideals, dedicating myself before God to my chosen profession. All right, very good. You'll each need to sign one of these. when you come back up. We don't need to do it now, Catherine, when you come back up. Okay, Officer Lane, let's do your oath of office. Right hand again. I, Agnes Lane, do solemnly swear that I will support and abide by the Constitution of the United States, and that I will support, abide by, and enforce the Constitution and laws of the State of Oregon and the rules and regulations of the Cottage Police Department. And I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially discharge the duties of police officer during my continuance therein to the best of my ability, so help me God. Congratulations. Here you go, Officer Lane. If you, whoa, you need to sign these here in the presence of everybody. And then right there, and we'll fill the rest of them later. Very good. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Okay, the short one. Raise your right hand. I, Sean Marsh, do solemnly swear that I will support and abide by the Constitution of the United States, that I will support, abide by, and enforce the Constitution and laws of the State of Oregon and the rules and regulations of the Cottage Police Department. And I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially discharge the duties of police captain during my continuance therein to the best of my ability, so help me God. Congratulations. I took the heat off me by having trouble with the last one. Is it blue? Blue, okay. That'd be blue. Ethics is up. Somebody get pictures. So again, thank you, Mayor and Council. It's really important for me, and I think it's important for our folks to have this done in this format, as well as important for the community to see us doing this. Any questions? Well, she's still here, so if you want to grill anybody with any questions.
Any questions?
All right.
Well, we're happy to have you. Thank you.
That's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Well, fittingly, it's Peace Officers Memorial Day Proclamation. Whereas in 1962, President John F. Kennedy signed a proclamation which designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week in which it falls as National Police Week. Whereas the members of Cottage Grove Police Department play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the citizens of Cottage Grove. And whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the challenges and responsibilities faced by their police department and recognize that members of our police department provide a vital service to the community. Now, therefore, I, Candace Soulsby, Mayor of the City of Cottage Grove, call upon all citizens to observe the week of May 15th through May 21st, 2023 as Police Week, with appropriate recognition to the women and men who, by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities, have rendered a dedicated service to our community, and in doing so, have established for themselves an enviable and enduring reputation for preserving the right and security of all citizens. I further call upon all citizens of the City of Cottage Grove to observe Monday, May 15th, 2023 as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of those peace officers who through their courageous deeds have lost their lives or have become disabled in the performance of their duty. In witness whereof I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Cottage Grove to be affixed this 8th day of May, 2023. Okay. Items to be added to the agenda. I see none. Appearance of interested citizens for items not on the agenda. This is a time for citizens' comment on items not listed on the agenda for a maximum of 30 minutes. Individual speakers must be recognized by the presiding officer, provide their name and address, and will be allowed up to 5 minutes or less with council approval. Comments regarding any matter scheduled for a public hearing may be provided only in that hearing. Comments on agenda items may be taken prior to council discussion on that item. The council will not engage in any discussion or make any decisions based on public comment at this time. However, the council may take comments under advisement for discussion and action at a further council meeting. And I want to remind everyone that we're to be courteous to one another. Please, no outbursts, no noises, no clapping. All right, I'm going to start with our first person, Jan Oxbury.
The part that has left the largest Jan Oxbury, 1350 Merrill Lane. The part that has left the largest impact on me from the allegedly public school board candidate forum was when, after being shoved, I sat back down and kept calling for someone to please call the police. Many spectators were gathered, many of who are in this room right now, staring at me. Not one of them called the police. Outside, 2 of them told the police that nothing happened. The videos show otherwise. By there being no consequences for bad behavior, it is apparent that intimidation is a successful tactic in Cottage Grove. In the 2 weeks since that forum, there has been a threat on the school board, a homeless man has been beaten, and a child has been beaten by 2 other children. Those are only the situations that I'm aware of. I don't know, there may be others. At least 2 people in our community claim that city staff and city council attend their meetings when they can. That implies a link. You may want to get the word out that as a body, neither has attended any of their public meetings. If you continue allowing rentals to groups that announce they are public, I suggest posting prominent signs at the entrance with the disclaimer and saying, enter at your own risk. Thank you.
Venice Mason.
My name is Venice Mason, and I live in the Old City Hall building, Unit 3. I'm here to speak despite the advice of many well-meaning community members who fear for my safety. I'm here to put the truth to a lie that somehow I deserved what happened to me and 4 other women and 1 other gentleman at a public meeting held in our community center with a sign on the doorway that said public welcome. I'm not here to speak to you about trans rights or vaccine efficacy or ICE or police brutality or any of the other divisive topics that are plaguing our democracy all over the country. I'm here to put the truth to the lie that it is okay for vigilantes to attack people with impunity on camera and get on the radio and lie about it, and get on YouTube and make videos telling lies about the people who experienced it. I am here to put the truth to the lie that I was armed, that I deserved what happened to me, that I have ever pulled a weapon on anybody for any reason, even if I did carry it while gardening. That night I was in flip-flops, my hair down, participating. Next to me was an 82-year-old Cheyenne elder who had walked me into the building, who asked me why I was outside if I cared so passionately about what was happening inside. And I said, because they will assault me. They have proven it repeatedly. It has happened before, and I'm afraid it will happen again. And she said, we're going in, sweetie. So we did. I did not go there for violence. I went there to put the truth to the lies that are being told to our caring community by vigilantes and alt-right extremists sitting in this very room who have wasted this community's time with rhetoric that is inflammatory, damaging to the overall fabric of our community, and deeply troubling. I am here to put the truth to the lie that I have been asked to leave council meetings. I have been called on a point of order and complied willingly one time. I believe that these vigilantes are being fed lies and think that they had the authority to do something. In fact, they've claimed it publicly on the radio, on YouTube, and other places, flaunting the true authority of this community, which is this council and the police department that enforces the laws that you pass. It is time to stop skirting the issue while groups of armed alt-right vigilantes shut down things like federal vaccine clinics in our city. As a reminder of this type of activity, I will share a few lines from the minutes of this very meeting on 1/24/22, where thwarting a federal vaccine clinic was proudly proclaimed to everybody. In fact, putting the city on notice that her and 24 others took the law into their own hands and interceded despite having no authority to do so. On that day, despite being asked by the current mayor to stop speaking, Johanna Z. stated that administering a vaccine was a crime and against the Constitution of Oregon and the United States, and that her and 24 others had interceded illegally, proudly proclaiming it as putting you on notice that they would be enforcing the laws themselves. Thank you kindly. Luckily, through the actions of activists and concerned community, we were able to finally have a vaccine clinic in our city under heightened security. It was a joy to be there with many of you to make the truth win over the lies that are being fed to vulnerable people in our community. So before I digress too much into the history of people taking the law into their own hands around here, I have a request of the council. I request that you remember that I'm a constitutionalist and that I walked up to the line and dissented legally. I request that you remember and look into the fact that other people did not and behaved illegally. I would like you to ban all people who have physically removed me from supposed public meetings from the library and all other public buildings in accordance with your code of conduct. I have complained about the violations of the code of conduct to the community manager, the assistant to the city manager, and to the city manager. And I have been told that the process is to appeal to the city council. I ask you to look into this thoroughly and err on the side of caution. Finally, I would like you to consider banning concealed carry weapons in all public buildings, including the armory, this room, and our library and community center. With the world degrading the way that it is and gun violence hurting people, we're lucky that we got away. We're lucky that nobody got hurt worse. Remember to vote for the school board and make sure that bullies and miscreants do not rise to power in our community. Please take this seriously and understand that the people who were assaulted along with me, I feel horrible for what happened in that meeting. Elders, disabled people were assaulted. They have been on the radio, they have been on TV, laughing and doing it with impunity. I'm here to put the truth to the lie that Cottage Grove is out of control and controlled by vigilantes. I'm here because this is the safest place in the world for me to be, because you guys have this city, not these people.
Chris Solomon.
Chris Holloman. I live at 324 Adams Ave, Cottage Grove. And we've got a few little handful of issues here. But first of all, I wanted to recognize today in 1945, Nazi Germany surrendered to the Allied forces. And it's an important day to me personally and to a good share of our community. If I had time today, I would have gone to Barry's Jewish Deli in Eugene and had a baked item, which I probably don't need. But we have a small yet vibrant and well-represented Jewish community here in Cottage Grove. And I also wanted to recognize Hannah Still, who lived here for years and was a survivor of Auschwitz. And I don't know how many of you remember her. She was a wonderful person. She had difficulty walking as her right leg was destroyed by the butt of a rifle of the Nazi guard at the camp. And so I think we should recognize today as a wonderful day for the world. And then just a little issue with the city council. Maybe I'm just kind of odd, but I think I really want the council members to really speak their true feelings and beliefs and express that in a vote. Occasionally there's been a call for a unanimous vote, and I really don't like that. I want to know how each member truly feels about an issue, and going unanimous just for the sake of getting along really isn't, to me, super good governance. I mean, our legislature certainly doesn't do it. Congress doesn't do it. The Senate doesn't do it. So I would just like the council to consider this, that to not be pressed into a unanimous vote on an issue or anything. If they feel differently, a protest vote is a high compliment to that person, even if they're defeated. So that way the citizens really get to know how you all feel, our elected representatives. And then another quick issue, we obviously here in Oregon and Washington, because possession of drugs is legal here, you can get a small fine. It's usually resolved. If you call a counselor, then everything's forgiven. But it's interesting because just today, the city of Bellingham, Washington, just changed how they deal with this. So it is legal to have a city ordinance and enforce this ordinance of consuming drugs on public property. Just like some cities, I remember Monmouth, when I was going to the U of O, Monmouth was a dry city. You couldn't consume alcohol in Monmouth, Now, I used to go up there with my friends with half racks of beer, and that's what we did. But those type of ordinances are available to our city. And I do truly believe that consuming drugs openly on city-owned property, public property, school district property is not good. It's not good for our children. It's not good for our citizens. It's not good for the person consuming them. But it is something that we could control here, and I think it's a good thing. And then the other thing that's really a big topic right now in the community is the roads. Obviously our potholes in roads. And Councilor Meriday, who I congratulated the last meeting, wanting to form an ad hoc committee. And then a week ago, Friday, he saw me out mowing my lawn. Came down and we visited for probably an hour on other things, but he brought me the form, which reminded me to get on this. And Councilor Flack just thanked me for that too. I hope that the city got enough people, volunteers for that, so we can have a viable committee. And speaking of potholes and roads and things, most of you know I live in a corporate world, and so I'd like to just talk about money and spending and that sort of thing. So I think when the community is really upset about an issue like the roads and the potholes and everything, I think it behooves the city council and city management look at ways to get more money into those accounts, into those funds. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bill Christensen.
Bill Christensen, 1337 Elm Avenue, Sunrise Estates, Cottage Grove. I wanted to, since this is you're going to commemorate Mental Illness Awareness Month, I wanted to share a little story about me and then kind of offer my thoughts on mental illness and the mentally ill in Cottage Grove. I used to work at a state hospital called Rainier State School in Washington, in Buckley, Washington, and it was transition at the time that I worked there. It was transitioning from a institution, a cinder block institution, to building cottages for the physically disabled and the mentally disabled, mentally ill. And I worked there for about a year and a half, but I saw a lot of things. And a lot of the things I saw, I'm not going to repeat in this session. But it was a wonderful place for the residents to live because they had a residence that they lived in. They had people like dorm parents to watch over the comings and goings. They had a full service clinic there, and the clinic even did some minor surgery. They had 3 meals a day, and they had an address. So if parents or family members or extended family wanted to visit the residents, they knew where they were, and they could come and visit them. Sadly, the majority of the kids that were there, kids and adults that were there, their family never visited them, and it was a real sad thing on the part of the staff. There was some parents who visited their kids a lot for birthdays and all kinds of things, but they had an address. They were there all the time. But they had a school that they could go to. We played games with them. We watched movies with them. And it was a wonderful place for the mentally ill to be. And I'll tell you this, it was a lot better situation than what they're experiencing now on the streets. I called Rainier State School today for the first time in 45 years, and it's still going strong. They're still serving the state of Washington. They're taking care of the needs of those kids, and this is Mental Illness Awareness Month. But I'll be honest with you, I don't really need more awareness of the mentally ill, and I have a soft spot for the mentally ill because I worked with them and I dealt with them. And I don't need more awareness. I have all the awareness I need. We need solutions. And we need to get them off the streets, off the sidewalks, off the parks, off the vacant lots, and get them in places where they can be taken care of because they can't take care of themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Perkins.
Hello, Tom Perkins, 77857 Mosby Creek Road. I am the program director for South Valley Athletics. I started at the beginning of the year, and I just wanted to come down here and just kind of mention to you guys how appreciative we are of all that the city has done to help us. We love where we're at over at the community center. It's a great location for us. It's easy for people to find us. We've made a lot of good connections with a lot of community organizations that are serving different groups in the community. We primarily serve youth for youth athletics, but so we've gotten the opportunity to partner with some of other organizations that are serving youth in the community, and we just want to thank you for all of your support. With your support, we're going to be able to do some work on some of the fields around town so we can get some more space, which is a big issue for us. Space, facilities, we have a big need for that to serve the people that we serve. So right now we have about 400 kids playing soccer. a little over 400 kids. So every Saturday we get anywhere from about 1,000 to about 1,400 people, community members down at the high school, engaging with each other. And it's a cool thing to see. I've seen a lot of good things. Every day we go down there. Every Saturday we're down there. You see community members coming together. It's a beautiful thing. And we want to continue to do that. We want to find ways that we can continue to do that. We want to continue to serve. We want our program to grow. Our program has grown. We've seen some growth this last year. After COVID, of course, we had a little bit of a drop. And even before that, we had a little bit lower numbers. But we see those numbers going up every season. We do soccer, volleyball, basketball, and cheer. And every year, over the last year or two, we've seen those numbers rise. So we take that as a positive, and we want to continue to do that, and we can't do that without your help, and we really appreciate it. One of the things I get to do in my job is I get to interact with a lot of community members. And when I talk to community members, one of the big things that people always want is they want more stuff for kids to do in Cottage Grove. And we want to be there to facilitate that. And I like you see us as a youth organization, but I see us as being able to grow to where we're an organization, a recreation organization that could serve toddlers all the way up to seniors. We could have programs, healthy programs for people to come together and engage. There's a big need for seniors. I see that. I get to see that down at the community center. That's like a hub. The seniors come in there, and that's where they get all their information. They interact with people. They smile. They laugh. It keeps them healthy. Same thing with kids. Getting out on the fields. There's things you learn doing athletics or programs like that we offer that you don't learn in school. There's just different aspects to life, working with a team, pushing yourself, interacting, pushing through adversity. It's not always easy to do the things that you do when you're on a team, or you don't always like everybody you're with, but you learn to deal with it, you learn to grow, and we think it's really important, and we just want to continue to do that. One of the things that people tell me a lot is they would like to see a rec center, something big, a hub. Like I said, a hub that wouldn't be just for kids. It could be something that could serve the whole community, and not just the community of Cottage Grove, but all of South Lane County down to Roseburg, Douglas County. I mean, Cottage Grove is a unique spot. We're right here. We straddle the I-5 corridor. We got a great community, a beautiful town, historic downtown. We're 5, 10, 15 minutes away from lakes, rivers, and mountains. There's lots to do here. There's lots of things to bring people to Cottage Grove. I think a healthy, thriving rec center would be another aspect of this town that would just make it thrive, and it would be like a beacon, and people could see that, and they would look at Cottage Grove and they'd see, here's a town that really cares about community, about friendship, and taking care of their people. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mike Bork.
My name's Mike Bork. I live at 310 North Douglas. I moved here about 3 years ago. I think you guys are familiar with that. I came from Eugene. The reason why I left Eugene was because of the crime that was there. I had 4 different cars that got broken into, all at different places, from my house to schools, everything else in between. And that's one of the reasons why I moved here. In the last 3 years, I have seen this town slowly disintegrate. And it's sort of sad. So I'm on the fence as to leave or fight. Right now I'm going to fight, but I have the option to leave, where a lot of your citizens here do not have that option. And what sort of threw me over the ledge this last week was I sent an email into the city manager and was not responded to until I emailed him again, and he finally responded, but not to the question at hand. And what I was asking for was an agenda item for when a city councilor decided to resign or be recalled, that instead of having the way the charter is now, is to have that position put forth to either a May election or a fall election. So the citizens of the city could vote on that person instead of having a councilor. So that's what brings me to my topic at hand, is I'm asking for the resignation of our city manager, Richard Myers. I don't take that lightly, but I think in both of the things that have happened from the police chief that was here and what's gone on with that to our, we've already talked about our street roads. He oversees that as well. And if you look at the situation for our businesses, I mean, a lot of them, some of it's been brought on from homelessness. Some of it has been brought on just from the pure economics that's happening now. But, if you go to the post office now, you can't go in after 5 o'clock for a PO box because that's locked. You look at a lot of these businesses, they've had to put fences around places where people were either camping out or doing things. Most of the stores now have to lock certain items within the store. That was not here 2 years ago. I think all of you are very aware of that. And I guess, I look at how we best can utilize our money and what we can do. I look at that department. We have a city manager, assistant city manager, and a secretary. Do we need it? I'm not sure. So I'm asking you to look and really look at this town, see where you want it to go, and let's move forward instead of staying where we're at right now. It's not working. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have one person online, Mr. Bruce Kelsch. Bruce, are you there? Can you see him? No. Okay. We'll move on. Consent agenda.
Move approval.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Moves forward. All right. Resolutions and ordinances. Item A, resolution forming an ad hoc street improvement and funding committee. Staff report by Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor Foldsby, and good evening, Council. So at the April 10th meeting, the City Council received a city street project and funding status report from myself. The report highlighted the challenges to funding street improvement, preservation, and maintenance within the current revenues received and dedicated to the street fund. Last July in 2022, the city received an updated pavement condition index for all the city streets. The one that had been originally done 3 years prior to that, in 2019, showed that pavement condition index was 58, which was in the bottom of the fair category. And then in 3 years, the pavement condition index had declined 3.3%. It's now at 54.7%, which is in the upper end of the poor category. The report also shared that to keep the city street PCI from dropping any lower, an average yearly investment in capital, preservation, and maintenance project needs would need to be at least $1.5 million per year. If the city was to move the PCI, the pavement condition index up to 70, which is in the good category, a yearly investment of 2.5 to 3 million will need to be done over the next 20 years. Currently, the street fund has committed $1 million to match the EDA Main Street Revitalization Project. You'll see in the proposed budget that will start on next week that that money is accounted for and committed to that project. In the 2023-24 projected budget, the estimated revenue is $1,275,000. And also the estimated operating expenses is $930,000, leaving approximately $345,000 for preservation and capital road and maintenance projects. Just want to reiterate what's called for in the report to keep our streets where they are today is $1.5 million. So you can see what the gap is. I'd also like to share that the city, the dedicated funds that are in the street fund is the city receives a 3% gas tax, which was voted in by the citizens 10 plus years ago. When I first got here 6 years ago, the income was about $450,000 a year. We're projecting at the end of this fiscal year approximately $320,000 in revenue from the 3% gas tax. So as you can see, that's about $120,000 to $130,000 reduction over the last 6 years. So the gas tax is not generating the revenue locally that it has in the past. And the same is true for the additional dedicated funds that we receive from our state apportionment fund, which is approximately I think it's right at $800,000 is what's our appropriated share of those funds. And once again, that's based on per capita. So one of the reasons that that is held kind of at that same level is because our population has increased such that we receive a larger portion of that proportion. But if you were looking at apples to apples, it's actually between 2%. That's kind of the structural component. We also receive some urban aid from the federal government, approximately $145,000 a year. So those are the three funding sources that covers the street fund, the operating expenses, and potential maintenance and capital projects. So at the conclusion of the report that City Council received in April, a motion was made and approved to establish an ad hoc committee with the purpose to look at how to increase revenue for the street fund to improve the city streets. The attached resolution was prepared and established an ad hoc committee. It's comprised of members of the City Council and an equal number of individuals from the community, city residents and property owners. And of course, the resolution can be amended to reflect whatever the council's desires are this evening. On Saturday, at the conclusion of the work session, or bill setting, the council was informed that there was 8 applications that were received by the May 5th deadline. There seemed to be interest by the council to consider appointing all 8 of those. And then also we have a YAC member that is interested in participating in the process, a youth advisory council member. So with that, the intent of the ad hoc committee is to really thoroughly look at all the options that are available to the council. There are approximately 10 ways of additionally raising revenue that can be looked into. Some of them make sense, some of them may not make sense. We will also talk about the challenges. I will share with you that the cost to do projects are increasing. We received about a 15% increase from last year in project costs, just yearly because of the materials and labor costs that are in this industry. I'll share that I got a price to fix the potholes between 10th Street and 8th Street on Monroe. It's a pretty rough section there. While Waldish was there repaving 10th Street, the storm drainage project was approximately $110,000 just to do those. and that's not to redo the entire street from 10th to 8th. It was fix the potholes. If we were to do North River Road, a capital rebuild project, it would cost approximately somewhere between $850 to $1 million just to do that segment from Main Street to Woodson Bridge. The costs are very high there, and they are increasing each year. So we have some real challenges ahead, and I'm cautiously optimistic that the committee can look at all the options and hopefully make a recommendation to the council, and hopefully receive support to generate some additional revenue.
Councilor Fleck.
Councilor Meredy was the one who suggested on Saturday adding all 8, and I think it's a wonderful idea. I think and I apologize, I don't have those in front of me. They were sent in a separate email, and I didn't get those. But I do remember it was quite a diverse group, mostly of city residents, which was something I was hoping for, because if we do end up with a tax measure, I certainly want a supermajority, and I think we have 2/3, if I remember right, are city residents. But I also love the fact that people who live just outside of our community that come in and drive and or have businesses also are able to do, have some input. So I think this is a great group. I think 8 is certainly wonderful to get. With that, I would assume or propose that we, I guess I can just make a motion, or do we need a resolution number first?
Resolution number?
2095.
So I will move that the council adopt resolution 2095, amending the first be it further resolved and changing 7 city residents or property owners to 8 community members. I think that would fit the bill more accurately.
All right, Councilor Meredy.
Can we add a friendly amendment and the Youth Advisory Council member?
Thank you.
I also was very impressed by the selection, including people with factual knowledge. And so it was a great group, and I really appreciate the citizens for stepping forward.
Absolutely. So is that with the second?
And second.
We have a motion with the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
May
Oh,
I have just discussion comments, if you don't mind,
absolutely.
Mayor. Thank you, Mayor, Council. I think it's important to note that one of the roles that this council can make an impact in our community is really things that generally individuals on their own should not or do not do, such as paving roads. And we are having this complex challenge, so I appreciate bringing together people to address it. And I also want to highlight that while one of the reasons that affects how much money we have to pave our roads is that we have invested $1 million in an economic development administration grant to revitalize Main Street. We set aside that $1 million to leverage an investment of $5 million. And this is a federal program that requires that you have quote unquote skin in the game. So that's a match requirement that program has, but that really is something that I hear people around the state applauding Cottage Grove, like, oh, did you see they got that award? So while we're in quite the pickle now, I just want to highlight that was quite an accomplishment to get that investment where we have leveraged more than the overall street budget by investing $1 million for Main Street.
Thank you. Anyone else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Do we need to do a
Do
roll
our-
call?
Recorder, will you please call the roll?
Councilor Irvin.
Aye.
Councilor Fleck.
Aye.
Councilor Meredy.
Aye.
Councilor Savage.
Aye.
Councilor Stennett.
Aye.
Councilor Beard.
Aye.
Mayor Filson.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. Second vote for ordinance number 3172, amending section 18.04.050 expedited procedure of the Cottage Grove Municipal Code. Staff report by Mr. Mongan.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Council. The Public Works and Development Department brings before the Council Ordinance 3172 for a second vote and adoption. The first vote on Ordinance 3172 was held at the April 10th, 2023 meeting. It's recommended by staff that Council consider the ordinance and vote for adoption.
Counselor?
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the Council adopt ordinance number 3172 or hold a second vote for adoption.
Second.
We have motion with second. Any discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Fleck?
Aye.
Counselor Meredith?
Aye.
Counselor Savage?
Aye.
Counselor Stennett?
Aye.
Counselor Dreer?
Aye.
Counselor Urban?
Aye.
Mayor Solsby?
Aye. All right, the ordinance passes. Business from the City Council. Award of Cottage Grove Secondary Clarifier 1 Rehabilitation Project Contract. Staff report by Public Works. Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. So on April 5th, 2023, at 10 a.m., Cottage Grove received one sealed bid submission to an invitation to bid for the Cottage Grove Secondary Clarifier Number 1 Rehabilitation Project at the Cottage Grove Water Reclamation Facility. The project consists of replacement of the existing secondary clarifier equipment, new concrete center foundation, and miscellaneous structural concrete repairs and replacement of the existing handrail and replacement of small diameter piping, associated structural, mechanical, electrical, instrumentation, and control improvements. The engineer's estimate for the secondary clarifier number 1 rehabilitation project was $1.3 to $1.6 million. West Yost prepared the intent to bid documents using legal counsel's template to ensure that the intent to bid followed the city's adopted public contracting rules. Sealed bids were due at 10, and the city received one bid from R&G Excavation for $1,228,996.50. The bid was reviewed and met the requirements and was deemed a legitimate bid, and the recommendation is to award the bid to R&G Excavating, and the work will begin July 1st of 2023 with the intent to have this project completed by October 1st of this year ahead of the rainy season kicking in. So it's a staff's recommendation to award it.
Councilor Fleck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the City Council award the Cottage Grove Secondary Clarifier Number 1 Rehabilitation Project to R&G Excavating in the amount of $1,228,996.50 and authorize the city manager to sign the contract and all associated documents.
Second.
We have a motion with a second. Any discussion?
Before we move on, just the chair. The folks that are watching, this clarifier was one of the originals. It was built back in 1970. There was some refurbishment done. The operating mechanism was installed, rehabilitated in the early 80s. This piece of equipment operates 24/7 and has since its construction and date. It is wore out and needs to be replaced. It's not something that we're doing just to do. It's something that we need to do so that we can comply with our DEQ discharge permit. So I just wanted to add a little bit more context to why this is being done.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Savage?
Aye.
Counselor Stennett?
Aye.
Counselor Dreer?
Aye.
Counselor Urban?
Aye.
Counselor Fleck?
Aye.
Counselor Meredith?
Aye.
Mayor Solsby?
Aye. Okay. Motion carries. Proposed amendments to Chapter 3.10 Multi-Unit Property Tax Exemption Program and information regarding action items included in the Affordable Housing Implementation Plan. Staff report by the City Planner, Eric Monken.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. On February 24th, Council held a work session to discuss the findings and action items of the completed Affordable Housing Implementation Plan. That following Monday, at the regular City Council meeting, staff requested guidance from Council on how they'd like staff to proceed in regard to the recommendations presented in the report. The outcome of that discussion is included in the attached minutes to this memo. At this time, staff is prepared to make its initial recommendations regarding amendments to the existing MUFTI program, and kind of discuss some timelines for the low income rental housing property exemption program, or LRPD, the low to moderate income home ownership program, that's a HOLTI program, and discuss the timing of some of the other development code text amendments. So in the memo, starting with, I just brought in the current public benefits or design elements from chapter or section 310.050. Right now, they're pretty vague, and you're only required to provide one public benefit, assuming that you meet the other applicable requirements for the MUFTI program, such as 3 or more units, being within a quarter-mile of a transit route, things like that. So following that, I included a little bit of a marked up version of those, well, originally 16, now potentially 17 or 18, depending on how council wants to go on those items, and really just hoping that we can have a discussion and figure out what kind of tuning council would like, and then I can come back at a subsequent meeting and present that ordinance to amend chapter 3.10. So I could probably talk all night, but maybe it's easier if you guys direct some questions my way. And
Councillor Flack?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I mentioned on Friday, I do think that we were really gung-ho to get some housing going, and this has, I think, been a real success so far. But the public benefit piece, I think, from my sense and some of the comments I heard both on the council and the public, is that we might want to tighten that up a little bit. But I also worry about making sure that we're not tightening up so much that we're losing potential development. And so I guess whatever we decide tonight, I would also like a piece where we're reaching out to some of our local developers, recent and or otherwise, and see if, you know, any of this stuff seems like a stumbling block. I love the suggestions, and I think the one thing I'm looking at that you're seeking guidance on is on 17. Does that sound correct? Because this seems like kind of an either or. We originally had stayed away from the capital A affordable piece because of the complexity of that, and I guess some feedback from city staff on how manageable that would be, because this means annually having that developer report in, you know, percentages of folks that are under the 60% AMI, I believe it is, and so I'm just kind of curious about how staff feels about if the council did adopt that, maybe not as an exclusive, but as one of the choices.
Mayor, Councilor Fleck. So a couple of things here. I did have an opportunity to discuss with a more recent developer regarding if affordability as a requirement would be a deal breaker or not. They didn't really, you know, they didn't want to lay out their cards, I guess, if you will, but certainly seemed like it may not have done the scale of project that they ended up doing as a result of that. In addition to just when, at the time of approval, getting through their pro forma on their own, and then the final construction costs coming in at $1.5 million more, you know, those kind of variables probably would have, you know, removed them from this sort of thing. They might have stopped or whatever. That being said, that's just one developer. As you know, locally we don't, you know, we've had the benefit of having someone come in from, I'd say, outside or around the state, and that would be with the Harrison Village project. And I wasn't able to speak with her, but with the amenities that were provided there, as I understand it, talking to other cities and things like that, you begin to start getting those trade-offs. So maybe they don't have a on-site pool, or they don't have covered parking. Those other nicer amenities that kind of, make it more than just the bottom. As far as my survey about the cities that have MUFTI programs, we're the only one without an affordability requirement. So it must work. I just don't, I haven't been there to see the plans and what's coming through to really know that, but certainly that would be something that I would look into before presenting that.
Follow up with you. So if we made the first part of 17 a requirement rather than a choice, does that sound like something that would be a stumbling block for them? Because what we're saying is basically, okay, we're going to have a studio apartment and we're going to have a 2-bedroom is what we're saying, or whatever the combination thereof. So we are kind of keeping a lower cost, even though we're not setting a bar for what that cost is. We're saying we'd like a more affordable piece without going all the way down to the 60% of AMI.
So council could certainly come up with some kind of mix like that, because we don't, under the MUFTI program, the statute that enables it, if there's not an income requirement or an affordability requirement. So certainly council could come up with and adopt an ordinance that amends, that builds in some of that variety, I guess, if you will, in the development. So again, I'll defer to Harrison Village, where they actually did include studio or 1-bedrooms, and then 2 bedrooms with 1 bath, and 2 bedrooms with 2 baths. So they built in a mix on their own already. And so certainly that could be an option that had less administrative work. Going back to your original question. One of the things, I believe it was Councilor Irvin had asked for, and it was in the supplemental packet that went out this morning. I pulled this from the city of Newport's. I should have numbered the pages, so I apologize for that. But it's this chart here. And while these numbers are a couple years old, I think it's illuminative of what that actually means to get to that 60% of AMI on what the rents can be. And so offering the local input, yes. So the apartments that just are coming online on Gateway, $1,500 a month, 2-bedroom, 2 bath. You can see here that it basically be half. And so it certainly would, going back, does this, eliminate development because it's too heavy of a lift locally, potentially.
And I just follow up. I guess given right now the cost of goods and the interest rates, for building right now, I guess I would rather leave that piece alone for now. I think we can revisit it in the future, but we need units desperately, and I think that I would hate to risk developments coming in if we got too tight. So that's just kind of my 2 cents.
Councilor Irvin?
Thank you, Mayor. You said we're the only ones that don't have this requirement. Can you speak at all to the advantage that gives us among developers in the area? That seems like that would be a marked advantage of wanting to develop here.
Mayor, Councilor, yes, absolutely. I think that where we maybe hit the wall for the moment is just that kind of greenfield developable land that's available without a lot of extra effort. That's not to say that it's stifling it completely, as the Pine Springs or Village Green project was recently received its final approval on Friday at 5 p.m. For 120 apartments. This morning I received their MUFTI application. So but there it's all for market rate. You know, I think they 1475 I think is what they put down would be the rents for that place. So certainly it seems attractive, but again, to get there because of some of the other lingering things that are discussed further in the original memo, they had to go through a master plan process. And so that project was probably more successful because it was such a large site, and it would play into the master plan requirements a little better, as opposed to regular multifamily development. 10% open space, it requires 15% open space, just some of those other higher bars that you have to get to. Not to mention, instead of an $840 application one time, it's a $2,000 application followed by a $400 application. So it wasn't as streamlined of a process. But after that one's done, we're kind of in that same place of just not having that shovel-ready land ready for developers to come in and take advantage of the fact that we don't require affordability.
And a follow-up to that, we had an interesting presentation at the Lane Economic Committee meeting about startups coming out of the U of O and some of the challenges in attracting talent. And this has been a recurring kind of theme through the U of O about housing and getting them. And there were some interesting things, and Councilor Jared brought up, I believe you brought it up, the path to home ownership. The hoopty, was it?
Holte.
Oh, Holte. I remember hoopty. the Holte.
I think I said hoopty. I can make an acronym.
Try to get out of the hoopty and into the Holte. And like just thinking about the general direction that we want to move, you know, if you're trapped in the rentals are more than the mortgages in a lot of cases. And that just got me thinking about what can we do for the community is incentivize and help homeownership rather than, you know, I think we got to be a little bit careful about if the only options are rentals and people are in rentals, you get stuck there longer, and you can't make inroads, you can't get out as easily, especially as they're going up. And there's some innovative things that he was mentioning happening out of, I think he had spent some time, Dr. AER, in Arizona, where there was partnerships with the universities and towns, which bring up concerns of council. They even do their own loan programs for home ownership, 3.5%. And so I'd love to explore options. We're a regional area that feeds into U of O. There's a reason they're interested. Maybe we can say, well, we don't want just rentals. We want to really encourage homeownership. So maybe we can do a Holte and look at that and see other ideas for getting our residents into homes so they can start building equity and realize a better future for themselves and their families. So yes, we do need just units across the board, but I'm starting to pay attention more to what types of units, what do we want to become, what impacts the community here. So that's my primary area of interest as far as information coming back in.
Did you have something you wanted to say?
Mayor, please. So, Council Flagg, I just circling back on the number 17. Certainly, as proposed, we can just make it another public benefit available, and if somebody wishes to take advantage of it, they could. So is that?
And that's the direction I was suggesting.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify.
Councilor Dreher.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Thank you, Mr. Monken, for bringing this to us. I appreciate this. This is something I'm really passionate about. I've worked in the homelessness continuum of care in the county, so I'm very familiar with how MUPTI, LERPTI, HOLTI, a bunch of other acronyms that are really fun to say, are some of the tools that cities can have in their toolbox to incentivize development, but also work for the public benefit. So I definitely support increasing the requirement for public benefits from 1 to 3 or more. Go wild, go more. As far as, I'd also like staff to come back with more information about the Holte, the home ownership, maybe limited tax exemption, whatever it stands for. I am very interested in that because home ownership is the pathway in America to financial stability for your household. I want to just focus on what we're talking about with the MUPD is tax abatement for developers. So that means they are not paying their taxes. They are not contributing to the public good to pay money to pave our roads, support our libraries. When we give them that benefit to help them reach the development's bottom line, I expect significant additional public investment. I very much support this example that's in here of to be eligible for MUPD, a minimum of 20% of units in a project must be affordable to households earning 80% or less of the area median income, not 60% AMI, but 80%. An example of 80% AMI is I have a household of 4 and I make about $64,000 a year. So we have almost 1 in 5 Cottage Grove households lives in poverty, and overall, almost half of our households are cost burdened. The housing needs analysis from Echo Northwest shows that Cottage Grove has the largest share of cost burdened households relative to all comparison cities, as well as Lane County and Oregon. And it's just getting worse. When we talk about rentals and renters, we're talking about people who are paying as much, if not more, in monthly rent as a mortgage, and they would be homeowners and putting that money every month into equity if not for not having the assets to put down a down payment or not building credit to be able to get a loan for a home. So I think I take this very seriously as far as what is our charge to have a public benefit and put something in policy that is for the benefit of the people who are busy living their lives, who will never know we did this, but they will know that at some point there might be an apartment complex where there are units set aside that they can afford, where they're not rent burdened, where they don't have to go to community sharing to supplement their grocery bills and their all the other basic needs. I really, really support this. I am certainly willing to compromise to have this be just one of the list on the public benefits, but I would like to see it be a requirement. And also number 16, inclusion of additional tenant amenities. I'd probably like more information on that because I don't think inclusion of laundry storage or covered parking facilities on site is enough of a public benefit to be added to this list. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to loudly echo exactly what was just said. I really appreciate that. Something I haven't heard yet, and I think we briefly talked about it Friday, but I'm curious to know more, is preservation. We have apartments here in town. We have homes here in town, and they are overpriced. Not overpriced in the sense that it's padding somebody's pocket. I'm sure that they're paying their own mortgage, but I have friends looking for a place to stay, and they're looking at an 800 square foot home, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, for $1,500 a month. These are not the new homes going into Gateway. This is existing stuff also. So I would like to see some sort of benefit for folks to keep existing spaces without having that increase that's so significant to become that market rate. There's a way that we can incentivize folks to keep that lower, not refinance their place, not, instead of refinancing, maybe you'd like to tax it. I don't know.
Mayor, Councilor Savage. So the informational bit of materials that were in the agenda pack that went out, I included Eugene's LRPD program, and that does allow for preservation. That would be very similar to that. What I think about, though, with that is just we'd really want to be looking at what we could potentially be doing to our tax rolls, too, right? I If somebody ends up buying, I don't know, something that generates 5,000 a year, that gets wiped for 20 years. It just is a big picture thing that we just want to make sure that we're really paying attention to. And circling back to Councilor Drew, one of the other items that's a little bit later in the presentation, but I won't say it before I forget. The combination, I believe, of the Hulte with the Middle Housing Land Division code out of state statute, I think is a really good opportunity to, basically mirror what Corvallis Neighborhood Services Netco did over on the end of Arthur Avenue, where you've got a common land ownership, the parent lot, and then smaller lots, actually units of land that can be bought and sold with some regulation attached to it as far as what the affordability has to be maintained for them. Right now, at the project on Arthur Avenue, they just created tax lots, which create tax lots around a chair if you want to. In this case, the Middle Family Land Division Code would allow for, that's lesser buy-in. It would be a community buy-in for like a larger site, but then just a smaller, in theory, smaller.
Mayor, Council, if I may, to that point, I would like to see more developments like Dev Northwest's project on Arthur Avenue. I have friends who live there. They have, in order to get into their smaller homes, so like starter homes, in order to get into that project, to have the opportunity to purchase those homes, you go through Dev Northwest's Financial Foundations course, first time home buyers class, and then you are entered into a lottery. And it's like literally, if you win the lottery, you have the opportunity to purchase this home and get down payment assistance. I think these are the types of programs, Councilor Irvin, you're talking about that we'd like to incentivize for wealth generation. For, in particular, the property on Arthur Avenue is home to many young families.
Councilor Merida.
Thank you, Mayor. One question about the Village Green development. So whatever is decided now with the MUPT would apply to them, or would they be under the former version of the MUPT?
Mayor, Councilor Merida, so they did apply today, so the ordinance that effect is.
So that won't, whatever we decide tonight will not affect that. So I also want to tighten up the MUPT. I've heard from many citizens, they got the tax break and they put in a sidewalk or something. I think most of the citizens view this as not enough benefit. So just saying one or more sounds to me a bit hollow. So I would like to, I think someone mentioned 3 or more of the things, and also would like to make it less vague about providing some sort of affordability, because it is a huge, I mean, when I couldn't imagine paying $1,500 for a rent that's just going down the tubes. I mean, you can never get ahead. And if that's, I think at the Harrison, it starts at around 900 and goes up, and so that's, again, way beyond, there's no way to get ahead. And if we're trying to bring people in that can afford that, that's going to drive out the people that live here that are cited in the studies that you presented with us. So.
Mayor, Council Merida, yeah. So certainly, I would say there hasn't been any applications approved thus far that have just been for a little bit extra sidewalk that would be required anyway. But certainly, as I mentioned on Friday morning, we were, at the direction of council staff, presented this current version. We were just looking to get something going. I think, I believe it was Councilor Irvin maybe a year ago said, hey, we need to take a look at this. DLCD afforded us a grant. We did the Affordable Housing Implementation Plan. So, yeah, we're trying to make sure that we're doing right by the community members who have or do still have to pay their taxes, for their new home or whatever the situations may be.
Councilor Stennett.
Thank you. It sounded like you might characterize our lack of buildable lands is a bigger impediment than even any restrictions we have on development or we place on. Is that
Mayor, Councilor Stinnett, yeah, there is a need for significant capital investment by a developer to access the larger buildable tracts of land that we have in the community. Whether those are the ones out South 4th Street, the Woodard property, there 4th and Cleveland. That's a pretty significant example. It's 60-some acres and, has a ton of development potential, but it needs streets, roads, more than likely a wastewater lift station, some of the, pretty high dollar improvements just to get there. And so I think that certainly has been a barrier. Another barrier too, and Mr. Stewart and I have talked about this, I believe it's been discussed at council. There's lands out there that property owners just don't want to sell, and that's just it. They're there. They show up on our inventories as being, there and ready to go. Cottage Grove looks like its 20-year outlay for residential lands is okay, but the property owner has no interest in it, moving it to allow it to be developed. So there's really nothing we can do about those market forces here that I'm aware of.
would you say that we have smaller tracts? I mean, we've seen smaller multi applications. Can we make a difference over time?
I say that again.
Can we have more of a trickle of multi applications and make them?
The numbers that we need are so significant. It would need to be a pretty steady trickle. And then we run into issues of the zoning of the land. I think that then becomes another thing. So, yes, council approved the Campfire Cottages MUPD, recently extended it back in March, I believe. That's an R1 tract of land, definitely a very unique piece of land. There's really not a lot of those out there. And it was certainly a pretty aggressive developer to even consider doing something like that. So that's 7 units there where it's really zoned for 1. So that is obviously a significant plus. It's just I don't know if there's enough of those tracts to really move the needle.
Can I do one more? Thank you. Sorry. So when the MUPD program, I wasn't certain. It sounds like we just wanted to get units across the board regardless. But I guess I wonder what's public benefits to units that most of Cottage Grove can't afford. And what are we trying to do? Who are we trying to be, as we have said? And we're trying to fill up somehow in a way that doesn't. I mean, people who love this town and want to stay here and have sweat equity and skin in the game, I want them to be able to. I think that's, but absent an affordable set of materials and an affordable contractor, you don't have affordable housing, and I just don't think we do. So I don't know what we're trying to do.
So, Councilor, I'd say, the economics on this I'm sure we could do a study, but I know at the time, and I think Councilor Fleck mentioned this on Friday morning, we did see that there was going to be an opportunity for folks to move up a step. So because the inventory was so low, you were renting for $1,300 a month. But that was started 5 years ago. Now you're the manager at the department store. So now you can afford something else. You still want to stay in Cottage Grove, but there's nothing to move up to. And so we were hopeful, optimistic that there would be that a little bit of an upward shift where then it creates a vacancy on that lower, income level rung. Like I said, it's really hard to nail down, whether or not that's occurred. I've heard some anecdotal commentary about that. Maybe Councilor Fleck has as well. I'm not sure, but that was kind of the hope. But certainly, as you say, I mean, we need to cover all the different ranges. And in that packet of supplemental information that I provided, one of the sheets, I had just kind of marked up in the. It's one. It's got number 60 on the bottom. So when this was the housing needs analysis. Basically, it said from 2018 to 2038, we needed 1,300 some homes, or 69 a year. But across that, in the extreme poverty, we needed 280. In the can't remember what the next poverty level is called, but the 30 to 50% MFI, we need 350, and then 50 to 80, 178, 80 to 120, 299, and then not in poverty, or 120% at 268. To date, the only extreme poverty units that have been created are Square One Village, the Cottage Village Coalition, the 13 units there. We've had nothing in the 30 to 50, nothing in the 50 to 80. And then I would argue that the Nedco project and maybe some of the other duplexes that have been constructed might fall into that 80 to 120 range, and then 120, and above. And with that, I've got 136 multifamily units. That's Harrison Village. That's Nolan Doer's project. That's David Carroll Rogers' project. That's Gateway. And then about 50 single-family dwellings and duplexes. So we're way far away from getting any of those numbers this time with the current program.
Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to add some fun facts, being this last week has been head down doing budget and commentaries. But this last year, we permitted 7 new single families for the whole year. Coburg permitted 8 of them in 1 month last year. Bonita is on course to do 100 new homes in the year. And if you just heard Mr. Mongan say that we've approved 126 MUFTI approved apartments, that's over a 3-year period. So if you take our housing, you take the amount of apartments, we're nowhere near the 69 residents that we need to create a year according to our housing needs analysis study that we did. And as I've shared, there's been people interested, developers from Salem has tried multiple times to buy several different parcels in this property, in this community, offered full price offers to one family that wasn't able to accept it for some reason or not, that would have brought in a developer from outside the community to build houses they want to build in our community. But finding a piece of property that they can purchase has been very, very difficult. There's a lot of, we're touching on one little piece here. This is a huge, complicated piece, and then when you throw in Mr. Longman shared, you add $1 million in cost from the time you start building the project to the time you actually get to it. There isn't a lot of people that price increases when they start a project. Come in at this price point. So I didn't mean that to be a downer, but I also wanted to share the reality that you'll get to see next week when we start diving into your budget.
Councilor Urban.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the presentations from the economist, the regional economist, keeps surfacing in my mind about, Oregon is no longer having this influx. In this most recent time, it's flattened out, I think, basically to 0 between net exodus and coming in. It's flattened out, and that makes me wonder, on this Eco Northwest, there must have been assumptions built in to the growth rates. And I'm curious, I'd like to revisit those assumptions. I didn't see them in this package just looking at it. But,
I think it's 1.3% is the model they used.
Growth.
And I'd add that we're mandated by state law to get a brand new coordinated population number each year from PSU. We get a brand new number that shows us exactly, they take our information on what was permitted and they tell you how much our population. So we've, since I've been here, in 6 years, we've went from right at 10,000 to right now we're at 10,792 or 93. So we can each year give you an updated, you'll get an updated number of how much our population is growing.
So I do want to kind of address there is the benefit in the MUPTI also of creating units, even if they're market rate. The theory of supply and demand, of course, is that if we end up with enough available units, competition should stabilize or lower the price if availability were to diminish. The problem is the state and the whole West Coast have a housing shortage. And so we can do a whole lot in our town, and then we end up with folks moving here. And so it's not just us. That's where the state, I don't remember the number, I want to say it was like 3144, is trying to mandate cities over 10,000 population to build or face sanctions. And I don't know that that's the way I would go about it. I think I would have incentive as well as the stick and the carrot. But I guess the benefit of having units right now, I think we're still at 1% vacancy rate or lower. So that's and it's not as bad in the metro areas. So I do think that we need units. Like I said, I would love to put in an affordability piece, but at this point, I don't think we're at that point where we can be picky. So that's just my 2 cents worth. However, if that's the consensus of council, I would do that. I would just then hope that we would be cognizant, if we're not seeing any development going forward, that we might reevaluate that decision as well. Because I do think there's, I mean, we could face a recession tomorrow and we'll see nothing. We could end up with, interest rates continuing to skyrocket. So I think that, we need to be nimble. And so I just want the council to hopefully consider that. I guess my suggestion from what I've been hearing is maybe to have the affordable piece, but then make 3 requirements and start there. That would be my suggestion, but I'm open to, compromise on it.
That's where I was going to. Actually, I was going to bring up the supply and demand. It's got a pencil out for developers right now. And also, could you remind me what the tax defer is, MUFTI versus the LRPD?
Mayor, so the MUFTI is certainly more geared towards for-profit development. It's a 10-year abatement of all improvement values. Mm-hmm. So the land still has a taxable value and taxes are due. Mm-hmm. On the LRPD, it's 20 years. It's renewable. MUFTI's not renewable. And it abates everything, land and improvements.
So there's the benefit for the low income too in keeping a MUFTI and adding a LRPD. So, to add more, I guess I would say don't touch the MUFTI, keep that in place, let developers that want to come in just because we need it so badly, but also bring in the LRPD. How many units did you say were going into Village Green?
120 will be for lease, and then the 121st is the on-site manager.
Okay. And then also, I've been told South Lane School District has quite a bit of land. Is that true? And could we approach them? Is it buildable land?
It's encumbered. I believe you're referring to what was supposed to be the baseball field there on the west side of our street. Mm-hmm. I've heard that there was potentially plan to surplus that land. I don't know if it's gone anywhere with the school board at this point. It's got slopes. It's got wetlands. Nothing that can't be addressed, certainly now with requirements for on-site stormwater detention and treatment. Some of those things, natural features, can be used to that benefit. But it's certainly not a nice flat rectangle, right?
Thank you.
I may, Councilor Dreer, regarding just, you had mentioned that number, bullet 16. It is staff's intent that when I come back with the draft ordinance for consideration of the amendments to the MUFTI program, that they're following that there would be a companion resolution which would establish guidelines from this body for staff to implement through the monthly program. So with that, then it would be tightening up on all descriptions of public benefits. And by doing it by resolution, it makes it a little bit easier for council to make amendments, as we don't have to, we can do those things and they're effective immediately. I think I have a couple more items here. I'll go quick. I'm confident I know the direction, but of course we talked about briefly just the LRPD program. Staff understands that council would like us to start moving forward with that and making contacts with the taxing districts to gain their support. It would seem logical that while I'm talking to those folks, I talk to them about the whole T as well. Both programs would need the support of the taxing districts, at least 51%, but we're going to shoot for 100. So that's that. Work on those. On the last page of my first memo, or second to last page, just a little table here. Some of the things that I pulled out, I try to triage, prioritize from the work session and meeting that we had back in February. So height, allowing a height bonus for regulated affordable, 12 feet. So as long as they meet the setback requirements and step down for adjacent zones, they could have, instead of 60, they could have a 72-foot tall building, meaning, in theory, they can maybe get a little closer on that profile, theoretically. Then, of course, there's the outright permittance of mixed-use developments in commercial zones. This ordinance, as I visualize it in my mind, would not be just saying that, hey, this lot's community commercial, I can build a house on it. This will be, okay, it's above or behind or some combination of that, much like what we already have on Main Street, where behind 25 feet you can have residential development or so they'd really just be locking that into the code. This one here, this goes back to the comments I made about the process that the folks with the Village Green had to go through. So they had to go through a Type 3 master plan to get an adopted overlay and concept plan, and then come back through and do another whole Type 3 process just to approve that they met the conditions of the first one. So it's a very lengthy, costly process. Staff doesn't see any value in it as long as they meet clear and objective standards as established by the development code. So make it a Type 2 process for most common multifamily developments where they meet the clear and objective standards. So 10% open space, required number of apartment spaces, architectural features, etc. If they can just check those boxes, it would be a Type 2 procedure, meaning a public notice to everyone within 100 feet of that. And then likely we would amend the code to include an on-site posting as well, much like the Type 3 process is now. And then following a 2-week public comment period, staff would draft a report for a director's level decision. This would allow for development of things not having to coincide with the calendar for planning commission, things like that. So it's really just kind of lowering, it's not lowering the bar or the standards of the code, it's really just a process cleanup. As I mentioned earlier, we're unique in that we require certain things or don't require things. We're probably one of the few that require a quasi-judicial review of clear and objective standards in the state of Oregon. Pretty much everywhere else, Eugene, Springfield, Albany, Roseburg, it's a Type 2 for multifamily. So we're really just kind of aligning ourselves with what our neighbors are doing, making it a little bit easier on the developer as far as timing things. So that would be another one we'd go. I mentioned earlier the Middle Housing Land Division. This came out of legislative session last one, I guess. And again, basically, it's you have a parent lot where there's some access land, if you will, some open space, and then each parcel can be created. They don't have to meet the R1 definition of 45 feet wide, at least 70 deep, 4,500 square feet. It can be 300 square feet if it's just a little tiny house. But it would be a lawful unit of land instead of just a tax lot. And so for home ownership, for mortgages, things like that, it gives, it's something they can borrow on, as opposed to my understanding of the Arthur Avenue project is there's still some guardrails on who can lend for those, but maybe Councilor Trier knows them. I can speak to it some more. And then just some more housekeeping things to amend the master plan process. Full disclosure, the Pine Springs master plan went through that process the first time anyone has gone through that process in the city of Cottage Grove since master plans were, I won't say taken away from council's final approval, but I believe that was back in 2012-ish. Council used to approve all master plans, and then the current code was adopted. So we just want to clean that up. I mean, it still needs to go through a vigorous review. It just doesn't need to go through the one that's currently going down because it's redundant in places. And then just some other housekeeping things. So I think I got it.
Councilor Flack?
So yeah, actually, it's so funny because I was ready to chime in. Councilor Irwin saw me, motioning, and you actually answered my questions. But I do on the type 2. I'm not opposed to that, but the postings were the key piece of that because that piece I would still want notification to the neighbors. I would want the so type 2 is a staff level opinion, but it's appealable to the planning commission, which is then appealable to the city council. So there's still a public process. If there are concerns from the community, and that's the piece I want to make sure is still there. What about neighborhood meetings and those sorts of things, which are type 3 level as well?
Mayor, Councilor Fleck. So for neighborhood meetings right now, the applicable requirement for that is a conditional use permit, a master plan development, or a subdivision of residential land greater than 10 acres. There's a couple of trigger points in there on residential land subdivisions. I believe after 10 acres, quote the code, but then it requires a master plan. So there's some thresholds there, but it really only applies to subdivisions, master plans, conditional use permits.
And those wouldn't change under what we're proposing. Thank you.
This would be specific to development applications.
All right, thank you. Do we have someone online?
I'm going to check and see if Bruce is on. I don't know if he's there still, or if he's not. His name's not.
All right, then I guess we will move forward. Concerns from council. Mr. Beck?
Okay. So Friday at our agenda session, we'd received a letter around the events that happened at the forum for the school district. And I urge caution because that letter actually wanted us to comment on the police and their, activities. And that's not our role. Our role is policy up here. After an investigation is complete, we can have some, discussions with our city manager about processes, but we stay out of that. Same with the judge. We don't say, Judge, you need to rule one way or another. We say, gosh, are you doing a good job overall? And we don't get involved in those level details. And that's why I urge some real caution from the council about weighing in on that. That being said, in watching the video, I'm very concerned, whatever the outcome of legal matters, that it just, I'm worried for our community and for our country. We've really just, I think COVID has created a stigma that was growing into a place where animosities have become hate. And we put down others who don't believe the way we do. And it's not healthy for us as individuals, and it's not healthy for us as a nation. I think that free speech is paramount, I certainly in the last year and a half have had many criticisms up here, and I welcome those, as uncomfortable as that is, because that's the public process. This is my listening to concerns from people, and yes, sometimes they're really unhappy and they don't articulate those concerns well, but we need to listen. And this is just so key in our nation right now is for us to listen to each other. We need to talk and respect and even encourage folks. I heard a comment, I think it was from Mr. Holloman, about voting the way we feel we should vote and not worrying about being unanimous. And I couldn't agree more. Um, and at the end of the day, when that vote is over, we need to go back to being the friends, though we were passionate about it. Former counselors that may or may not be in the room, and I had some very passionate debates, and used Robert's Rules shenanigans on each other, and would passionately argue for what we agreed or disagreed on, and then we would go across the street occasionally and have a beer afterwards, because this is what is good about the democratic process. This is what's good, is that I may learn something from listening to that as the other side listens to me. And this is what we need to get back to. And I'm not going to put down any one person in, what turned out to be a bad event, but offer that all of us need to step back a moment and remember that we're neighbors. Remember that we're all Americans, that we are all here to support each other, even though we may vehemently disagree with each other, that we all have rights. And that's so critical, and we cannot lose that as a nation. And so while either end of the spectrum is polarizing and pulling away, the rest of us need to encourage them to come back to the middle and come back to talking with each other and start compromising and start listening, because I kid you not, 90% of what goes on we agree on. It's that 10%, and if we can work on that 90% first, it makes that 10% so much easier. And I just really, really needed to say that, and I thank you for your patience.
Counselor Savage.
Thank you so much, Mayor Solsky. I had a lovely time in Seaside for our LOC Spring Conference. I had a lot more responsibilities for this conference than when I went to DC or even the fall conference, now that I'm a board member. So I did take notes, but I found the packets provided have really incredible notes. So if you're interested in reading the sessions that I took, I forwarded them on to Mindy, and they'll be available. I found it absolutely fascinating. I hope each of you got the email that I sent on Friday. We have our LOC fall conference in June this October, and we have the opportunity to suggest what topics we want to learn and potential workshop leaders. And so there is a deadline to have that turned in by. We need to have it turned in by, I believe it's the 17th of May, so we can get going on building those workshops for us to attend in the fall. So I encourage you all to check your email and make those recommendations. Thank you.
Counselor Merriday.
Thank you, Mayor. I heard Tom Perkins speak, the representative from South Valley Athletics, and talk about the needs of youth in Cottage Grove. I've also had the opportunity to read through over 100 years of city minutes, and it's a recurring theme that comes up again and again about needing opportunities for youth so they don't find opportunities that we don't like the recent graffiti spree. With youth without guidance leads to undesirable results. That's the purpose of the scouting program that I'm affiliated with. Baden Powell came back from the Boer War and found out that kids were following his guides to scouting that he had wrote for a military purpose, and addressed the London slums where there was unmotivated youth hanging out on the streets, and presented a program, the scouting program, to uh, offer them a way to build character and skills and turn them into useful citizens. So I have some good news. We made an application through the Rotary Club with the partnering with the City of Cottage Grove to the Yarg Foundation. They were specifically asking for projects for youth from 5 to 17 in the South Lane area, and it seemed to fit the bill. Councilor Irvin and myself have been working for a number of years on trying to do something for youth that like to ride wheeled sports. So we put in a $10,000 grant to have a community developed process to design a facility for the future. It would result in a thorough process of getting community input and yielding a buildable plan. And they awarded us that grant for $10,000. So I want to thank the Yard Family Foundation for that, and also listen up for more to come on creating a recreation district that Mr. Perkins also alluded to. We would like to all partner to do things for the youth and have an outlet for their energy and help to guide them into being useful and productive citizens.
Councillor Stennett.
I felt compelled to respond to Mr. Holloman's comment about us being coerced to vote unanimously. I don't recall that ever happening. I'd like to assure you that I've never voted based on anyone else's insinuation or coercion. It would imply some sort of foreknowledge of how the rest of the council was going to vote anyway, and I just think that's a pretty serious allegation, really. I'm not perfect and don't claim to be and won't continue to be, but only ever under my conscience to the best of my understanding. It's certainly not an accusation I would level against anyone on this council or anyone else certainly. So I vote the way I believe, and I believe you guys need to know it. That's about all I have to say.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to reflect on our goal-setting work session. For one, I came away from that just encouraged and hopeful in a direction forward. And so I appreciate it. I wasn't sure how to think about it at first, but came away very, very pleased. So thank you all. Also wanted to kind of express, and I didn't want to continue to belabor the Mufti kind of conversation, but there's just an overarching sense of like where do we put time and effort that's most valuable? Where does focus? Everything needs attention, right? Everything needs to be attended to. But what are the highest value things? And Councilor Merriday was talking about it does begin with the youth. It does like creating a hopeful future, something that looks attainable, something that inspires, something where there's examples of people doing things and mentorship. That's what my heart is into for Cottage Grove, and I want to explore that with the council. And I think about this. Speaking of the LEC meeting, just talking to this director of research, right? Very influential in what happens in our communities and getting the intellectual property that comes out of U of O as research institutes. And there's a number of research institutes in town in the Eugene area, and getting them into businesses. I see Mr. Killenbeck here. I'm sure he's well aware of like the things that are going on in that arena, but it just came away like, how do we present ourselves as Cottage Grove? What can we do to bring these budding businesses that are inspirational, that are in these things that that can continue the STEM, can inject into the local education realm to provide opportunities. When I'm thinking about housing, like, what was it? You can, in business, we have this thought, like, I typically go to, how can we cut costs, right? What are we wasting on? What can we do? But, like, you can't cut costs out of an income deficit problem. It's a spiral. Like, you have to increase revenue. And what do we do as a how do we get the youth to go out and earn so we don't have to worry about the affordability? Things become affordable when you make more, That's the direction I want to head. And I know we have to address right here and now. And we have to address that there's populations that are on fixed incomes. There will always be, that. And so that's why I'm not opposed to things like that. But man, I want to make sure that we're pronouncing that we are open to host innovation, open to host companies that want to come here with high-paying jobs, that we will do what we can to invite them for the good of the future of Cottage Grove residents and the generations coming up. And I honestly don't know what to do about apathy in parents. But if a kid can see something happening and can make a connection, whether it be at a skate park with someone that can be like, wow, I see potential here. How can we get you connected? We have a more connected community. I can't imagine what will happen. So I just want to state that as my aim, because I have a tendency to jerk back from these other things like, man, let's hold and invest in something bigger. So I just want to set that context. Recreation center, one of those things. There's meetings coming up to talk about what does that actually look like. Not just pie in the sky stuff, but what does that mean to the tax rolls? We're talking about a lot of tax deferrals. Well, I'm hearing that. I'm hearing streets, I'm hearing all these other things. So there's a lot to balance here. But I think there's also a lot of opportunity. So I hope to report back at some point on what the progress is toward that end of an additional parks and recreation district, and whether that's a combined thing with these efforts in the skate park or something different. They're all heading in that same direction. So that's my update.
Well, I also attended Seaside League of Oregon Cities, and it was my favorite conference that I've been to yet. And I got some real useful knowledge from some of the mayor's meetings, and met a lot of rural Oregon mayors, which was my intention to do. I set out to do that purposefully because what's happening in a lot of our larger cities has, of course, trickled down to rural Oregon. And my goal was always to get together a group of rural Oregon mayors. And I've met with a lobbyist that lobbies Salem on behalf of rural Oregon, and hoping to get some insight from him and to teach all of us, including counselors and mayors, on how we can get to Salem and put our best foot forward on what really counts for rural Oregon as opposed to what counts for the big metropolitan areas. I have seen the success of sports arenas. When I was in California, the city there ended up getting one, and that was the struggle that they fought with too, was inviting them in, and how much was that going to cost the taxpayer, but the return on that was huge. So I am excited about you guys going forward with something in the sports area for our youth. Now I also had this sitting on the dais when I got up here. Was this a certified letter, Mr. Myers?
No, that was just a
Okay. So I have not read it as of yet, but it asks that I read it at this meeting. So I'm going to go ahead and read this. To whom it may concern, this letter is to the City of Cottage Grove, City Manager, the City Council, and Mayor of Cottage Grove. I was born in the old city hospital 65 years ago. I am a real person. I'm a child of 10, all of whom were born and raised here. I'm just going to get to the point of what I have to say. This is about the homeless camps that have been sprung up all over Cottage Grove. I believe with all my good sense and judgment that Cottage Grove has made a grave mistake by introducing these mini camps. Do you realize that we are being overrun with dangerous, vagrant, drug-abusing people? And more are coming every day from Eugene, Springfield, and Roseburg. Why are all these homeless people coming to Cottage Grove? Because the word is out that Cottage Grove is catering to the homeless community. They are being told that they can and will get everything they need to continue their lives down here in Cottage Grove. Why would they leave? They're not planning to go anywhere else. This is without a doubt the biggest mistake this town has ever made. When the weather is warmer out, then many new homeless will be out trashing and littering all around our beautiful town. They will trash the parks and any other place they can find to shack up at. They will use wherever they want to use the restroom. They will be in public bathrooms at parks using them, and drugs, all while they're benefiting from our town resources. By supporting these new homeless policies, we're taking on at least 100 and counting vagrant bums to our once peaceful town. These people are mainly able-bodied young men in their 20s and early 30s. Some might be older professionals, many who have chosen to live this way. Many could work to pay their own way, but have chosen to come to Cottage Grove where they hand out are plentiful. Once again, these people are not going away, only more will come, because the word is out that we in the town of Cottage Grove are welcoming them with open arms. I've personally been cleaning up graffiti and tagging all winter this year. I have never seen it this bad. In the last few years, tagging has become an epidemic here in Cottage Grove. Many people are unaware of the problem because I have been able to get it cleaned up as soon as I see it. But I will tell you that it's a lot more than I've ever seen in our small town, and it's alarming. Anyway, my unseen work to help out by picking up trash and removing the tagging and cleaning up after the homeless is about to come to an end. I just feel like Cottage Grove as we once knew it is now gone. Why? Because the poor decisions the city has made. This used to be a place many wanted to come and visit. Now it's no better than Eugene. Our main street cannot handle any more cars. It's bumper to bumper. The city keeps allowing massive apartment complexes and buildings to be built, numerous tent cities to invade our small, quiet town. And for what? More revenue? I'll only compound every problem we have with this population increase, yet the city of Cottage Grove continues to let it happen. The city's decisions have ruined this town, and now we have big city problems with not even a proper police force to do the job. I'm tired of trying to make a difference when the city just keeps making decisions that seem to continue to feed the problem. We are overpopulated with homeless. Inviting them to continue to come to Cottage Grove is fatal to the health of our small town. I'm sorry, I feel that our town has just gone over the edge. Sincerely, concerned Cottage Grove citizen. All right, so now we have business from the city manager. Rain Catalyst Annual Update, staff report by the city manager, Richard Myers.
So we have with us tonight Ellen Mole and Rob Killen from RAIN. Ellen's our South Lane County Venture Catalyst, and Robert Killen is the Deputy Director with RAIN, at least for a little while longer. He can talk about that a little more. You also have on your desk a letter from the Cottage Grove CDC, Community Development Corporation, regarding the RAIN program and projects that they've completed. And turn the time over for Ellen here. Get her set up. So she can go.
I'm ready to go. Alrighty. Hello, everyone. Good evening, and thank you, City of Cottage Grove, City Councilors, Mayor, Robert Killen for joining us, and our two entrepreneurs that are here this evening. My name is Ellen Mole, and I've been serving Cottage Grove as the Venture Catalyst with RAIN since last September. We're excited to be presenting our annual progress report tonight and are eager to show you what we've accomplished in the past year. I want to start off by just explaining a little bit about what RAIN does in case you're new here, you're not sure. So RAIN exists to reduce barriers to entrepreneurship for underrepresented populations and communities. So some things that we do include joining in and not swooping in. We want to collaborate with the local and regional resource partners to support existing efforts that are already here. We also listen first. That means we do not presume to know what is needed by our entrepreneurs here. We want to listen and we want to act upon that, create programming that makes sense. Some of the key things that we connect entrepreneurs to include people, programs, physical assets, and capital. And some things from our toolkit include funding support via our RAINCAP program, business training, including accelerators, webinars, mentorship, and resource connections. I also want to point out that when you hire RAIN and you bring someone like me into the community, you're not just getting me, you're getting the whole team of entrepreneurs behind us. So I'm an entrepreneur myself. I own a graphic design business in Cresswell, so I'm local to this area, but behind me are 23 other entrepreneurs that focus on different categories of business. So this slide here shows how much our organization as a whole has grown since 2019. So RAIN has expanded its reach, serving 70 rural cities across the U.S. through an ERC project with the IEBC and advancing women in entrepreneurship in Pakistan in partnership with the U.S. State Department. A couple of key things here to pull off of are that as an organization, we've assisted over 2,000 entrepreneurs, helped raise over $28 million in capital, and have generated almost 800 jobs in all of the regions we've served. This next graph I really want to dive into and you guys take a look at this. So this graph highlights the amount of entrepreneurs RAIN has supported in Cottage Grove specifically since 2021 when we were invited in. So as a whole, we have supported now 80 entrepreneurs in total. Since I specifically stepped into this role back in September, I added to that list 45 additional entrepreneurs in the last 8 months. So more than half have been supported by myself in the last 8 months. I'm really grateful to say that. I really love working with all the entrepreneurs here. It brings me joy every day. I love solving problems in a creative way. So next, on the left here, I included some of the industries that we serve. You guys can read those through if you'd like. But today, for this slide, I'm going to focus on, I want to take some time to discuss how the Lane County Venture Catalyst model changed in 2022 to ensure that each community received more direct support from each venture catalyst, like myself. So back in 2022, the EIC funding was shifted to strengthen my VC contract since I live locally in Cresswell, not too far from here. Some of the results born out of this model include the following. So 80 entrepreneurs supported through April 2023. Prior to the model change, there were 35 entrepreneurs, which is about 1.3 a month. After the model change, there were 45 additional, which is about 5.6 entrepreneurs a month. Entrepreneurial events through April 2023 include 44 with an MOU goal of 40 to 50. So we were right in that range. Prior to the model change, there were 21 events that happened, which was about once a month. And when the model changed and I came in, we added some things and we brought that model up to about 3.3 events a month. So I'd say 3 to 4, depending on the workshop and the boot camp we're doing. I did also want to take some time on this slide. This isn't on here, but I wanted to I know some of you are aware that I'll be going from a half-time venture catalyst to a full-time venture catalyst, and we'll be serving additional regions. I just want to let you know that I'm well supported in the other regions and by my RAIN team, and that I have additional entrepreneur in community in Florence. It's an EIC role, and I have one EIC in Bonita and Coburg. With that being said, I'll be spending most of my time here in Cottage Grove and in Florence, since you two cities are making the largest investments. And and I live here locally in Cottage Grove, so I'm here every day, in case you haven't seen me. So, like I said, so with the model change, we've been putting a focus on highlighting local experts to provide opportunities to share their expertise by leading workshops for regional entrepreneurs. So we've been really spotlighting local experts like Philip Blagg, Jennifer Aubrey, who's here today, Joe Colombo, River Molyneux, Haley Marsteiner, to name a few. We've also been focusing on activating spaces like the Cottage Grove Big Building, Covered Bridge Brewery, where we have our last Friday meetup every month. We went to Jack Sprat's once. We used the library and community center space. And of course, monthly, we're actually at the Chamber of Commerce hosting our mentor hour there. And some key activities we've done include training and mentoring, partner development, market vendor boot camp, we did last winter, entrepreneur meetups, and funding preparation. I want to note here that $95,000 in funding was generated from 2 Cottage Grove entrepreneurs. Both received grants and both received support from our previous venture catalyst who was here before me. Additionally, currently we're working with an entrepreneur locally who we are actually providing her with a $10,000 grant to help with marketing and a promotional video to get her business going. She's also taken additional business planning services that are worth up to $9,000. But additionally, we've had our boot camps and accelerators you can see on the side on the top right, a moneymaker program, holiday market vendor boot camp, and 2 Rainmaker accelerators in the last year. I just wanted to include some pictures here of some entrepreneurs I've had the pleasure of working with. Some of these photos show my group activities that have been taking place at the Bank Building, Covered Bridge Brewery, and the Chamber of Commerce. And next, I'm sure some of you are really interested to see what we have coming up. We always talk about what's next, what's happening next, what can we get excited about. So this month we have 4 activities. We have a mentor hour and productive work session at the Cottage Grove Chamber next week. We are bringing in, we also have a Google Business Bootcamp with Roost Web Strategies, who are a couple that own a local Cottage Grove business doing web design and SEO. We've brought them in to be our experts for this month's workshop. We're also going to be bringing in Lonnie Woodruff, who is an exit planning, he's going to be doing an exit planning concepts for businesses workshop over Zoom. And then again, our entrepreneur meetup. I want to note here about our entrepreneur meetup. When I took over the role back in September, I had heard from some people that it would be best to jump it around town, and I did try that, and it might not have been the right time because it was moving into the holidays and things were getting slower, but people didn't like that I moved it from the brewery. So after the holidays, I brought it back to the brewery, and they've grown significantly since then. So people really liked that. I try to really listen to what they need. In the middle there, you see the event calendar that I put together. So it's easy for me to see, it's easy for you to see. We want to give this to entrepreneurs as well to show what events we have going on and keep them really posted and excited about all the things that we're going to be doing. And out of those events from the calendar, I pulled off to the side. So some highlights include the Cottage Grove Business Challenge, pop-up street fair event for local entrepreneurs. I'd love to bring in some food trucks and do something fun, a celebration in the summer outside. We want to do a youth entrepreneurship program. And I heard Dana, our counselor Dana Merriday, talking about the needs for youth programs here. So I think that would be great. I'd love to chat with you further. And of course, we're going to be continuing and strengthening coordination and collaboration with the Cottage Grove Chamber and other ecosystem partners. And next, we have a little testimonial, if possible. I would love to play from the couple with Roost Web Strategies. They sent this over. They couldn't be here this evening.
mouth the person.
Yeah, that's a written one as well. Should we just provide the written one as well? Yeah. Robert, do you have one? Okay, we can send it. Okay, we'll send it. We do have, I'll go next for now. There we go. So at this time, we would like to ask our other entrepreneurs to present their testimonials to City Council. So I do have these other ladies here who would like to go first. You're welcome to come up.
Council. My name is Elisa Smith, and I was fortunate enough to take the Moneymaker Accelerator last fall, or summer to fall, July, October, I believe, 10-week course. And I wanted to thank you all personally for sending on to the RAIN program because I was able to go with a friend and find out about the program. It helped me with access to tools. I'm familiar with budgeting and so forth, but there were more than that. Like the reason why people are truly successful. Simon Sinek did a video a long time ago about why. What is your product or your service actually filling a void for? So it helps to, the tools that we are presented really help to reframe and rethink. So it helps develop that. I felt like they did a really good job presenting and helping people to be inspired. I was intimidated right away because I'd never been in 100 people. 100 people. It took me like 6 classes at least to figure out how to raise my hand. I mean, in a group, I'm like, hey, this is how you do it. But apparently online, it's a whole other thing. But the inspiration of seeing all of the different ideas from all these different people in all different areas of business. One man was developing a system in order to solve a blindness problem in India. I mean, absolutely incredible. His testimony, his expertise, as well as locally, there was many different people. So I'm excited that we have Ellen in our local area because that was one thing that was a little bit different at the time. There was only a person who was doing, they'll commute to Florence and kind of all over. So I'm excited that they've expanded. The third thing that I really got from that class was accountability, because you were meeting with people. Not only did you have access to all the previous videos and tools, but it was accountability for my personal idea and what my business is going to represent and solve. And as for me personally, things have evolved for my husband and I's business. We're starting a food truck here very soon. It's going to be opening on 10th and Main, Foodsmiths, breakfast 2 to 12, or excuse me, 6 a.m. to 2 in the afternoon. We were able to be inspired by crafting our business plan and had all the tools to be able to find funding that we needed. And the fourth and final piece that I got from RAIN and that program was being able to, the word that I wanted to use, not accessibility, but to be able to receive. So it was availability to receive grants and programs. Because I went through that, I actually qualified for other opportunities here in Cottage Grove. So I just want to thank you all.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Hello, Council. Mayor, my name is Jennifer Aubrey. I own Sasquatch Vending and Bookkeeping Compass. As an entrepreneur, I've had the pleasure of working with RAIN for a couple of years now, and I can confidently say that they are one of the most compassionate organizations I have ever had the pleasure to work with. The selfless care and commitment to community, the selfless care and commitment to our community, the Catalyst, have shown each business owner has been unmatched with supportive yet realistic advice. Being a business owner can be lonely, and I appreciate the ability to bounce an idea off another professional that will not pass judgment and may rather see my problem through a different perspective or lens and give a different solution that I may not have thought of. I found RAIN in 2021 through different networking events I was attending, and I cannot recall who mentioned I should join RAIN, the RAIN programs, but I will be eternally grateful. I have been fortunate enough to be part of both the Rainmaker Marketing Accelerator and the Moneymaker programs, as well as I partake of the monthly meetups here that Ellen does, and it's really fostered a sense of community for me, which has just been great and has made me not feel like I'm so alone in my entrepreneurial journey. One of the biggest takeaways for me was realizing that I do not have to do everything by myself. Things that are outside of my knowledge base, such as SEO, Google My Business, social media setups, I can utilize the mentors, the tools, and the resources that Rain has introduced me to, thus allowing me to work on building my business in the most efficient way possible. Rain's commitment to the entrepreneurs and the communities they are brought into is truly exceptional. Not only do they provide top-notch information and resources, but they also go above and beyond to ensure each entrepreneur's needs are met through their mentoring hours. I've witnessed firsthand how they work closely with different business owners to understand the unique requirements and provide tailored solutions that meet each business's specific needs. That does not mean they will not do the work for us, as ultimately each business's success is the responsibility of the owner. But it's nice to feel as though I have a trusted friend and advisor to walk that path alongside me. I must mention the exceptional level of inclusiveness, professionalism, and expertise that Rain brings to the table. Their team is incredibly knowledgeable and experienced, and they are always willing to share their insights and expertise to assist in the success of each business they can connect with. I feel they truly want each and every one of the businesses here to succeed. Overall, I would highly recommend Rain to any entrepreneur looking for business mentoring, access to local resources, training and education in areas outside of their zone of genius to help them achieve their business vision and goals. They truly are an amazing resource, and I look forward to working with them for many years to come. And I'd also like to thank the Cottage Grove Chamber of Commerce for having the proactive insight to invite Rain into the community to foster the success of our local businesses and economy. Our community is built on small businesses, and I appreciate any and all efforts to strengthen our town and our combined success. So thank you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate that. So thank you all for listening to me and to my entrepreneurs today and listening to our story and for your support. We're only able to do this work through the support of the communities that we serve. So thank you, Cottage Grove, for your partnership. We hope that through continued funding, we can continue to strengthen this entrepreneurial community in this beautiful city. So thank you all very much. Do any of you have any questions?
Any questions? No?
Not at this time.
Thank you so much for the work that you guys do.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I really appreciate you guys and all of your support. It's been awesome getting to know some of you, and I look forward to hopefully getting to further connect with the rest of you that we haven't done one-on-ones yet. Yeah, reach out anytime. I'm here if you guys need me. Thank you.
All right. Report from the city manager.
Just one item to report. Our first place winner in the If I Were Mayor contest in Cottage Grove was submitted to the state competition as well as the other first place winners. But our first place high school student in the video contest won the state competition first place throughout the entire state. She wins $500 along with that. So congratulations to Cassidy Foxel, our Yacht member.
That's great news. Our city attorney's here. Report from the city attorney.
No report from the city attorney tonight. Thank you.
Okay. So no, items removed from the consent agenda. And so now we will be going into executive session pursuant to 192.660 to review and evaluate the employment-related performance of the chief executive officer. So this meeting is adjourned.
Not adjourned.
No, it's not adjourned. It's
this.
You just pause it to go into executive session.
Okay, so we're paused to go into executive session.
Anybody out in the hallway?
No. Back in regular session. Is there people?
Wow.
Is there someone?
Hey, Jake.
Wow.
Sorry, Jake.
So just a statement, correct?
Yeah, no, we're back live and everything. All right.
The council has reviewed underlying documents and information related to the ongoing issues and investigations at the police department. To date, a majority of the council is satisfied with the city manager's performance and handling of the tumultuous situation. Absent new information, the council is moving forward in a positive direction. Meeting adjourned.